is a universal language. I know a renegade soldier when I see one. Never occurred to me that one might come from above.
I keep having these memories. I see flashes. I think I had a life here. But I can't tell if it's real.
We have no idea what threats are out there. We can't do this alone. We need you.
I'm not what you think I am.
Welcome to the Box Office Barflies podcast, Captain Marvel movie review. I'm John Santucci, call me Tooch. With me is Joey Two Scoops, the Goon, Joe Mandel, and our special guest tonight is Shayne Moneyman Marsaw, the smartest man, the Barroom. Box Office Barflies is a part of the Bears Barroom radio network. So we're coming to you from Planet C-53 tonight. This is a Captain Marvel movie review. And fellas, the difficulty for me reviewing this movie is that it's probably best for people and fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and other folks maybe won't get as much out of it. For sure they won't get as much out of it as a Marvel Cinematic Universe fan will, and they're probably going to be lost. Shayne, we'll go to you first. What do you think? Is an average fan's going to be lost in this movie?
Well, yeah, like my wife went with me, and she had, and can I swear, by the way?
Yeah.
She had no fucking clue what was going on, which was, not totally abnormal for her. But no, I mean, I was talking to you guys a little bit pre-show. I'm not a comic book guy, never have been at any point in my life, but the Marvel movies I love, and I mean I've seen every one of them multiple times, and this one, I followed along, and found myself a couple of scenes, just getting up, scooting up at the edge of my seat, getting ready, it got me a little bit excited just to see what was going to happen next, because you're thinking back to everything, and they were bouncing around, going back in time and then bringing you what was their present day, not our present day, obviously, because it was, 1995, I think?
Yeah, 95.
Yeah, yep. When it was based. But no, I mean, I don't think that they should have too much of a problem, because I don't know too many people that haven't followed along this Marvel monster at some point anyway, so I think they could follow it along pretty good.
And Joe, opening weekend, $153 million. We
Massive.
Usually talk about the box office.
Yeah.
So obviously people who are non-Marvel Cinematic Universe fans are going to see it.
Yep.
I'm in of the mind that, because I'm going to give it two grades. I'm going to give it a grade for Marvel Cinematic Universe fans and for average Joes. What do you think about what Shayne and I just talked about?
Man, Shayne touched on a great point there towards the end, and for me, it's like, how many people haven't seen the Marvel movies? There's probably not that many people. I mean, sure, there's a few people out there that don't see every single one, but I think personally, as someone that has seen all the movies, I think you could probably go see this movie without having an idea of the backstory. I think it's a great movie to bring like a young, your young kids to, or your daughter. It's a great message for kids. It's a great message for adults. So I don't think it really matters if you've seen any of the Marvel movies or not.
Okay, I gotta admit, I was a little bit lost in the opening scene. We'll talk about that in the spoilers section. I was like, where the hell are we? And I kind of didn't know. I mean, when we get in the spoilers section, I'll talk about what I liked about that.
Sure.
Generally in this section, Shayne, we usually just talk about general stuff without giving anything away. Yeah. So like to talk about the acting and the cast. So Brie Larson is in the lead role, and I didn't know much about her. She's awfully easy on the eyes. She's like thick, and I kind of like that. But
see, I thought so too. And that was one of the things that Eel and I were talking about when we were leaving. I said, well, babe, what didn't you care for it? And she's like, the lead lady. She's like, I didn't think she was hot enough. And I'm like, really? You know, I don't think she's, you know, super super hot, but she's just like fucking normal girl hot, and that to me is super hot. You know, she wasn't, you know, some bodacious chick that was just, you know, almost looked like she was plastic. She just looked normal, and to me that's super sexy when you're watching it. And she just looked like a, you know, average girl that was, you know, put together very well and has a pretty face. And to me that's really what it's all about. I don't want some, you know, you look at Scarlett Johansson, she's a good-looking girl, but then there's points where you're like, Jesus, there's parts of her that are almost too perfect, and I don't see that with Brie Larson, and to me, that's more sexy.
Yeah, I was attracted to say that, and I would see it with my wife too, and I know she was lost because I think she lost interest in it. Now, she's not a huge fan like me, where I've seen, you know, Infinity War 50 times, but. Joe, what did you think about Brie Larson? She trained hard for this film. She learned judo, boxing, wrestling. What do you think about the job she did, Joe?
Oh, man. So I'll preface this with the fact that I'm a huge Brie Larson fan before she even got cast as Captain Marvel. So, and as I'm going to piggyback on what Shayne was saying, I actually think that she is gorgeous, and Catherine knows this. She's like Brie Larson is like my celebrity crush. So I'll preface it with that. But she is a really great actress. I think she was the perfect casting for Captain Marvel. If you read the comics, she looks like Captain Marvel. She acts like Captain Marvel, and to me, she is Captain Marvel. And she wore all her emotions on her sleeve in this. I thought it was an incredible performance. I really liked what she brought to the table, because she kind of, you know, flexed her acting chops, and we'll get more into it in the spoiler section. But she is just, like you said, great to look at, and she's an even better actress on the screen. Her and Jude Law and Samuel L. Jackson just had a great chemistry on the screen.
Hey, let me ask you guys something about, you know, Brie Larson and her part in this role. Do you think that she's got a little bit of Tony Stark in her, and is that something that when you read the comic books, you know, she's got a little bit of that real, you know, smart ass, and she's gonna put a little. It's pretty much my role on 100 Proof. You know what I mean? The funny guy that's going to, you know, be quick-witted and stuff like that. I see a lot of similarities in their character when it comes to their humor and their wit. Is that something that you guys noticed?
Yeah, she definitely had the machismo. If you, I don't want to say her quips and comebacks were very, you know, tough guy for a woman. And I think that's what the screenwriters were going for. I don't know if you. You guys know that this is the very first Marvel Cinematic Universe film with a female lead.
Yep, that's right.
Right, coming on the heels of Wonder Woman, which if you compare and contrast those, would you guys, which one would you recommend over the other?
That's an impossible question for me, but
better film, or
I like the Marvel Universe better, and I think because of that, I give the slight edge to Captain Marvel.
Okay.
Joe essentially stole exactly what I was going to say. I would, if I put a gun to my head, I'm going Captain Marvel at the end of the day on this one for sure.
That's totally unexpected. I expected people to say Wonder Woman, but I never subscribed to any DC comics. I owned a few. I would get them on the, you know, once in a while, because it was Marvel stories were just better. You know, the comics, I had subscriptions to tons of them. Avengers, X-Men, Fantastic Four. You know, I started getting subscriptions to those probably when I was 10 years old in the late 70s. But yeah, overall, I probably would pick Captain Marvel myself too. The cast, let's talk about the cast. The cast was fantastic. You had some great actors.
Oh my gosh.
Samuel L. Jackson was fantastic. I
loved him.
Wasn't he great? I kept wondering how did they make him look young? It had to be
it's all CGI.
CGI, okay, so
yeah, the hair was definitely that was like he had like Carlos Boozer hair.
looked
when he painted it on. Yeah,
yeah, it looked totally real.
it did.
Even when he had like bandages above his eye, it was hard to tell, that it wasn't actually him as a younger man. Then of course you had Jude Law, who plays I can't remember his character's name. It's
Jan Rog or something, right?
Jan Rog. I keep getting him and Yondu. Jan Rog. Yeah, and of course the great Ben Mendelsohn, who has really appeared in a lot of movies recently. Australian actor, usually plays a bad guy. He was the bad guy in Ready Player One, Joe. Do you remember?
And Rogue One.
And Rogue One too. He was usually.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
We'll talk more about him in the spoilers section. His casting was undoubtedly a gimmick, and I'll tell you why I think that. The direction this movie was directed by Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden, they've worked together for a while, and on such films, notably Half Nelson, which was one of Ryan Gosling's earlier movies. If you've ever seen that, it's a pretty good flick. They also helped write the screenplay. The screenplay I thought it was clever. It was definitely influenced by 1990s action films. Did you guys pick up on that? What did you think of the screenplay, Shane?
I didn't pick up on that, Tooch, to be completely honest. Like I said, I'm not. I don't want to bring down your show or nothing. I'm not a humongous movie guy. Is how you saw the trailer. I think it was released today for the new Avengers. Yeah,
Endgame.
I mean, yeah, the Endgame. That just I got that same type of feeling watching this at certain parts. I'm like, oh man, this is so fucking dope. It just gets me animated and gets me hyped up, and that's all I really can ask for with a movie. If it gives me those little goosebumps, to me that's what it's all about, and then I consider it a great movie.
Yeah, I'm kind of speaking towards the buddy cop movies of the 90s, with late 80s and early 90s, with Samuel Jackson and Brie Larson kind of in this, buddy. In the second act, in the middle act, when the movie comes into a little clearer focus in the second act when they're on Earth, because in the beginning I was kind of lost in like a Flash Gordon world. We'll talk about that later, but the soundtrack. Joe, what do you think about the screenplay?
Dude, man, you talked about the buddy cop movies, and to me, the whole part with Samuel L. Jackson and Clark Gregg as Agent Coulson, it just reminded me of Police Academy. I don't know why. I just kind of got that vibe a little bit, and I just thought it was really fun and playful, and I didn't so much pick up on too much 90s throwback, but I did get the buddy cop thing. But I just thought it was really, really well done, and I disagree with you. I really liked the part in space. I think it kind of opened the movie and kind of set the tone.
Oh, I liked it too. I was a little bit lost, and we'll talk about that later. But
it was one of the best parts of the movie there when you saw the cat floating by. I thought that was hilarious.
Well, the soundtrack, is full of a lot of 90s songs. You have No Doubt and Nirvana.
Yeah.
And that was really fun for me, taking me back. The soundtrack, the score was by Pinar Toprak, who is the first woman to score a Marvel movie. So just a little bit of trivia there. Are you guys aware of Brie Larson's, controversial comments that surrounded this movie?
I am aware, and I've seen them constantly across the internet, and people bad mouthing her, and I just think they were kind of taken out of context.
I do too. It doesn't bother me. Basically, Shane, she said, sometimes movies, this is it in a nutshell, movies aren't made for 40-year-old white males. And some people are like, oh gosh, here we go. We need to have a woman hero. Why do we need to force, a woman character on us? Let's just, enjoy cinema for cinema, But to me, it doesn't bother me at all, Joe. You can read up on it later, Shane, if you want. It's kind of the whole thing, like Joe said, was taken out of context.
Right.
I think to me, it doesn't matter. I watch cinema for entertainment, not for social commentary.
And we didn't even mention this earlier, too, but Brie Larson, also an Academy Award winner.
Right, I did not know that. What was her?
She won an Academy Award for Best Actress for The Room.
The Room. Wow. Okay.
That was about 2 years ago.
Wow. Okay. I did not even see that one. That passed me by. Did you see that one, Shane?
I did not.
I didn't either. We give some grades now, huh, Joe?
Yeah, I said we give the movie some grades, man. So
for me, for MCU fans, I'm giving this a B+. For non-MC fans, just if you don't know anything about Marvel, I'd give it a C+. And I'm going to recommend you go see it. So if you don't go see it at the movies, you can see it at home video, but definitely watch it. Shane, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you gave it a perfect score there, Tooch. That solid B+. Definitely recommending it. Any movie that gets me excited about the next one, and and it's not just the next Captain Marvel. It's the next, the end game coming out. I love that, how they're all tied in together. I love watching movies, that bounce around, like we said, the cat scratching him, and you're like, so that gives me a check mark that I can, mark off. That's how that happened. I love all that stuff, and I love how it all ties in together, and definitely I'm going to give it the Marsaw seal of approval to go out and see. Solid B+ for me.
All right, Joe?
I'm actually going to go ahead and give it an A-. I just thought it was a fantastic film. And I will say, for people that haven't seen it, I've seen the Marvel movies, I still give it a good grade. I still say a B+, but I'm going to give it an A- because it kind of builds on everything the Marvel Universe has really done. And like Shane said, it really pumps up the next one. So I don't know about you guys, but I can't wait.
All right, so we'll head on into the spoiler section, Joe.
Spoiler alert!
And on Box Office Barflies, we always talk about the opening scene and how it sets the tone for the film. And I first want to talk about the Stan Lee tribute at the beginning of the movie, which I thought was really great. Kind of took me by surprise. You have all these, normally the Marvel flashcards, comic book covers, fly by, and they're all Stan Lee, and I thought that was great. What'd you guys think of that, Shane?
No, I did. I agree. It was that I was sitting back, and I, like you said, it started going through, and I'm like, oh, this must be the tribute part, because I'd seen a couple of things on Twitter where people said that it was really great, and yeah, I loved seeing that. And then you saw his little, clip, as always, in the movie, and it was just, kind of his final send off there, and it's nice, because he was definitely the man. I have one of my best friends that I've known my entire life, grew up with, graduated from high school with. She and her husband both worked for Marvel, and she's was very good friends with Mr. Lee, and she, we talked quite a bit about it, and she was, telling me how just great of a person he is. And I obviously never met him, but you see that, and it pulled at the old heartstrings just a little bit, because what he means to the franchise.
Yeah, Joe, did you know that was coming up, or did it take you by surprise?
It caught me by surprise, man, and I gotta say, it should have been done, and I'm glad it was. Yeah. And I'm not gonna lie, man, it got me a little bit choked up seeing.
Yeah, me too. It did.
Seeing Stan over all the years and all his cameos, and to think, that was his second to last cameo. I believe his last cameo is going to be in Avengers Endgame, but still
fitting, right?
Yeah, really, no kidding, Endgame. But I do want to touch on his cameo for just a second. I don't know if you guys noticed, but he was reading a script.
Yeah, Mallrats.
For Mallrats.
Yeah,
right?
Oh, was he? I didn't notice that.
Which he actually played, and he read that line in the movie Mallrats. So he was essentially playing himself in the movie, which I thought was genius.
Yeah, it was great. And in that scene in Mallrats, Jason Lee asks him if Thing's dick is made of rocks. Do you remember that scene in Mallrats?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My name is
hilarious.
Earl. The actor who plays My Name is Earl was in Mallrats, and he asks him if Thing's dick is made out of rocks also. That was great. Okay, so the opening scene, this is what I was talking about before, was confusing for me, because it's kind of like a battle, and it's ringing, as if a huge blast, and of course Brie Larson is kind of stunned, and I didn't know where we were, so confusing, and the first thought was that it was a battle or something, But then, it takes off. It's kind of cool. You get a little insight into Star Force, which was the group that led by Jude Law's character Jan Rog, and also there is another great actor in that group of Star Force, Djimon Hounsou, who plays Korath the Pursuer, who is in Guardians Volume 1.
Yes, you may remember him from the very first scene when Peter Quill is essentially captured, but he escapes.
Exactly. Great. Guardians Volume 1, probably one of my favorite Marvel MCU movies. It just has a distinct flavor, I guess. But so the confusion in the battle in the beginning, I'm okay with it because the movie deals a lot with memory and the loss of memory. I think that's one of, if not the central theme that runs through this movie, is the loss of Carol Danvers' memory, or Veers, and did you guys get that? The loss of memory was a big theme. That to me was like the struggle, in addition to the Kree and Skrull, which I'm going to call the gimmick, which I liked, also clever screenplay gimmick. But the main theme for me was the loss of memory. Did you catch up on that, Joe?
Yeah, I did, and I thought it was, man, when you play it out through the course of the entire movie, I just thought it was just a beautiful theme, and how when she finally remembers, how it just kind of unlocks everything. And it's just kind of the key in life too, man, is like, it's important for you to keep those memories alive no matter how you can. Like, even if it's deep down inside, if you remember a memory, it's just like in the movie, right? You ever forget something and then you go and remember it, and it just kind of becomes so vivid and it takes you back to that place. And I just thought the movie captured that so beautifully, especially with something as fragile as memory loss.
Right, and the movie really, the first act sets you up to deliver like a punch that you don't see coming. So, and that's why I'm going to give this movie a B+. Yeah, the first act sets us up where we're following the bad guys who we think are the good guys.
Yeah.
So, and that's part of the struggle with the memory loss, is that Veers, Carol Danvers, believes that she's on the right team. She's one of the good guys, and she's been manipulated the whole time by Jan Rog, who has tampered with her memory so that she can't remember who she was, where she came from, that she's not even a Kree, and that she thinks that the Skrulls are the bad guys, which, being a comic book fan, Joe, the Skrulls first appeared they were the enemies of the Fantastic Four in the comics.
That's right. Yes, sir.
So, and I always thought when I was a kid that they were the bad guys. So here they're sympathetic race, simply looking to escape the Krees who are destroying their home world, And to me, the Skrulls are really cool. They like this whole shape-shifting thing I found fascinating, where they could just take on anybody.
Yeah.
Because, Shayne, do you think that the Skrull shape-shifting ability is going to lead to maybe another Marvel Cinematic Universe character being a phony in one of the future movies?
I think it almost has to, because it's almost intoxicating the levels that you could go with something like that. I mean, when she gets onto when the old lady, that fight scene, it's just something that you're not expecting at all. I was looking over at my son, who was sitting between my wife and I, and he's like, Daddy, she's kicking the crap out of that old lady. And I'm like, he kind of wasn't following along too long, but I thought I think you're right, Tooch. I think that they could definitely go someplace with that, because I thought it was pretty awesome.
What do you think, Joe? Possible Skrull imposter? I
think so, man. I think it's definitely going to play into future movies, and we're going into the next phase of Marvel movies after Endgame. I believe, what is that, phase 5 now? So they're going into the next phase, and we'll touch more about the Skrull a little bit later, but I think that story is going to open up to be even bigger as well.
Right now, this movie occurs before Iron Man 1 in the order. If you were to put all the Marvel Cinematic movies in order, chronologically, this one occurs before Iron Man 1. So the second act is a bit more grounded. It takes place on Earth, or Planet C-53 as it's called in the movie. But I really enjoyed the Blockbuster store taking the brunt of the putting up the second act. When I was a kid, awesome. Blockbuster Video played a big part in my life. I'm 50 years old, so my Friday nights I would usually ride my bike up to Blockbuster, and rent something, for the weekend, come home. But did you guys have Blockbuster in your neighborhood? Of course.
Oh yeah. I thought the Blockbuster security guard kind of stole that scene. I thought that was pretty funny, where he's just like, what the hell's going on, just kind of staring at everything. I thought that was pretty great. That
guy is actually the head of security for Marvel.
Oh really?
Is he really?
The security guard is the actual head of security for Marvel.
Wow, that's awesome. I love how he centered a Radio Shack.
Right. Yeah. I knew it too. I told my wife, like, Radio Shack, it's just, that's the era I grew up in. But, of course, there's the Top Gun themes. Of course, you have the cat named after Goose, Maria Rambeau's plane, of course.
Speaking of the cat, the tie-in with the eye, was that something that was in the comics that you guys read? Was that the way that it kind of played out?
There was a Flurkin in the comics, though, right, Joe?
Yeah, but that's not how Nick Fury lost his eye in the comics.
Right.
Though.
Oh no, not in the comics. Yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny, though, the way that they did it in the movie.
Right. That was great too. I didn't remember the Flurkin from the comics, but. When you go back and look, that there actually was one. But of course the Tesseract, they've changed around some things. The Tesseract didn't actually contain the Space Stone as it did in Avengers Infinity War. Am I wrong about that, Joe? Or
yeah, it actually did contain the stone.
In the comics?
I'm not
sure. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it does contain the Space Stone, but
I don't believe the Tesseract even existed in the comics. I'd have to double check on that.
Okay, right, because that's going back to Thor, the first movie. Was the Tesseract was the subject of Thor?
Yeah.
Was it just called Thor, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so just called Thor. Then there was Thor: The Dark Universe.
The Dark World.
Dark World. Okay, and then Thor: Ragnarok. So we've had 3 Thor movies already. Right. So and then as you travel through. The second act, you learn more about the Skrulls, of course, because they're shape-shifting, which I thought was great. And then you get Agent Coulson back. It's good to see him alive, played by Clark Gregg. And did any of you guys watch Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I didn't.
I did not either.
Okay, in Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., there's an episode where they're trying to bring Agent Coulson back to life.
Oh, really?
Where he's died. Okay, I don't spoil it for anybody, but if you go and watch Marvel Agents,
it is the spoiler section, Tooch. So why don't you just
I know. Right. So I want to talk about the plot where the Skrulls are actually, the sympathetic race, and the Kree are the bad guys. But of course, we're introduced to the Kree in Guardians Volume 1 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, and the Krees were kind of bad guys in Guardians 1, correct?
Yeah, they were. I mean, you got why am I drawing a blank on
Ronan the Accuser.
Thank you, Ronan the Accuser, played by Lee Pace, who reprised his role again.
Right.
But I will say, yeah, he was part of that race as well, and yeah, so I should have known going into it, but I didn't.
Yeah, neither did I. I mean, we should have known, but you're following along, and you realize that we've been rooting for the wrong guys, and I think that's what brings the movie up into a better than Wonder Woman level, and it kind of shows that how the Marvel films have just better stories.
Yeah.
They just have better stories. There's just neater stuff. And I hate to use nerd terms like that, but I call this the Kree Skrull fake out. So, but after all, this is an origin story of Ms. Marvel, Captain Marvel. Of course, I knew her as Ms. Marvel in the comics, but the message of the film, which I think what Joe was talking about in the beginning, is when you get knocked to the ground, no matter who you are, get back up. And I think that's a great message. Did you find that? I know you took Riley to the movie. So how did Riley? Did he like the movie? Did he identify with the message?
Yeah, he definitely did, and he's like, wow. He's like, Daddy, the most powerful Avenger is a girl. That was like his takeaway from it. Women, girl power. That was the overriding theme with him, and I mean that was evident throughout the movie. You could talk with Captain Marvel's best friend. That she thought she was dead, and she was a kick-ass pilot herself, and then even her daughter was a little bit of a badass, in the movie. And it was, you have all these women that are going out there, and I mean, Joe talked about it when she got her memory back, and then everything just culminated with her like actually becoming herself and getting her full power. That to me was it was really amazing to me. I mean, that got me. I felt like I was watching a prize fight when she was up there in space, and I'm like, she is a bad, when she went up and she was in front of the spaceship there, just looking at him like, bring it, let's go. I thought it was a great message for, little boys like my son, little girls, men, women, everywhere, that, sex doesn't really matter. You can be a badass and get your message across, and like I said, sex doesn't really matter. I thought Joe made a great point, and I thought that message was really what I took away more than anything from the entire movie, and I know my son did too.
Right, and how old is Riley now?
He literally just turned 8.
8, okay. So he's getting the message too. That's great. To me, I would have thought, like 10-year-old to 14-year-old girls, this would be a pretty good film for them to get the most out of that message. 'Cause when Carol Danvers does start getting her memory back, some of those memories are early childhood memories, like the go-karts, falling off the bike. I think she had a little brawl with some kids. I can't remember, but
her Air Force
boot
training
camp when she fell. Yeah.
Right, yeah. In Army boot camp, right? She fell from the training obstacle course or training course. Every time she got back up.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the main messages they wanted to hammer home. So wrapping it up, before we wrap it up, the post-credit scenes, Joe. I know this is what you've been waiting for.
Yeah, I've been chomping at the bit.
Now, I was like, I was in the movie theater. I texted you. I'm like, is there 2 or 1? Because I didn't know if I'm going to stay.
Yeah.
And I ended up
We said the same thing. I wonder if there's 2.
What if there's 2? Right, exactly. I was like, I didn't think about it till the end. I saw the first one. Then I'm like about to get up, and I'm like, God damn it, do I have to wait for another one? So I waited for another one. But let's talk about the first post-credit scenes, Joe.
Yeah, man. So it cuts to the movie's over. It cuts to Bruce Banner's lab, right? So you got Captain America. You've got.
I didn't know that's where we were, but.
I believe it was. That's
okay.
my guess. Anyway, you got Captain America. You got Bruce Banner. You've got the Black Widow, and they're kind of all standing. And Thor, I believe, is there as well.
War Machine.
Yep. And then it cuts to they are inspecting the pager that Nick Fury dropped at the end of Avengers: Infinity War, in the post-credit scene there.
Stopped working.
It stopped working, right? It stopped sending off a signal, which, everyone's like, "What's going on?"
Like Phil's phone, right?
Yeah, last night.
Last night, Phil's
Joe hasn't listened to the show yet.
Restart it. Yeah, sorry,
we
Joe.
didn't tell him that. I'm like, he wanted to get an app back, so he reset his entire phone.
Oh, jeez, he's having a bad week. This is like a very bad week.
And then he didn't know his password. He put it in 10 times, and it totally locked him out.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God.
He probably won't listen to this. Anyways, go ahead.
We're good. Fuck him.
Well, anyway, they're looking at the pager, which we all know at the end of Infinity War was a pager to page Captain Marvel. It stops sending a signal, and they're all trying to figure out why. And then all of a sudden, I think it was Scarlett Johansson turns around and asks someone a question, and it's Captain Marvel right there in her face. She said, "Where's Fury?" And then it cuts black.
It's badass, man, wasn't it?
No, it was so badass.
Yeah, and then the second post-credit scene. So it's not necessary for you to stay to watch that one, but it was funny.
Yeah, it was entertaining. For everyone that saw the movie, they know that the cat Goose, which is a total scene stealer, by the way, we didn't really touch on it that much. He, at one point in the movie, he eats and swallows the Tesseract. So Nick Fury, of course, is carrying him around with the Tesseract in him. And after the very end of the credits, it cuts into the cat crawling around Nick Fury's desk. All of a sudden, it starts coughing like it's going to cough up a fur ball. And sure enough, it coughs up the entire Tesseract right in the middle of Fury's desk, covered in, like, cat spit.
Right, where we imagine it's picked up for Thor, the first movie eventually. But, I also forgot to mention Annette Bening in this movie, who we haven't seen in a while in film, still looking very good for her age. Did a fine job as the original inventor of the Star Drive. But and
I think we also have to touch on Lashana Lynch as well, who played Carol's best friend, whose name is escaping me. Maria, I believe, was her name.
Maria. Yeah.
Her daughter will become a
Marvel superhero as well.
Right, Photon. And if you looked on Maria Rambeau's jet, it said Maria Photon Rambeau, as in Top Gun. They had Maverick and Goose.
Yeah.
And, you saw Photon on the airplane.
You see Marvel really laying the bricks down for the next phase, really heavily, right? So obviously, you guys touched on before that Carol Danvers has that Tony Stark kind of snark and wit, and that's with intention. It's definitely designed that way because everyone going to see Avengers Endgame pretty much knows that Tony Stark is probably going to die. So who's going to carry on that mantle? It's probably going to be Captain Marvel. She's going to be the badass bitch of the Marvel universe. And, they're sowing the seeds as well. I don't know if anyone saw the Avengers Endgame trailer today.
I haven't seen it yet.
You have not, but in the trailer, you see Hawkeye shooting the bow and arrow with his daughter. And if you read the comics, you know that his daughter goes on to become Hawkeye after he passes away. Or they may switch the story up a little bit, but they're laying the bricks down, and that the new phase is coming up, so I'm excited for it.
Right, and then, of course, which I failed to mention, I said I would talk about here, is the casting of Ben Mendelsohn, who usually plays a villain, played Talos, the lead Skrull, and he was awesome, man. He, of course, because Ben always plays a villain, we think, of course, we're suckered into, we got sucker punched with the Krees and the Skrulls.
Yeah.
But he was fantastic, man. He was funny, and of course there was the scene. I can't forget to mention the scene where they're dissecting one of the Skrulls, and Nick Fury looks under the sheet to see if a Skrull's hits. That was funny. So you get little bits like that in the movie. And that's why I would recommend this movie for Marvel fans. I just think. Non-Marvel fans might be a little bit lost. They'll probably find it entertaining and stuff, but they won't get as much out of it as a normal Marvel MCU fan will get.
And another thing we forgot to talk about is the very ending of the movie, which it's when Nick Fury's typing up the Avenger Initiative, and he's got some stupid name for it. I can't remember what it was.
Protectors.
What's that?
The Protectors.
Yeah, the Protector Initiative. And he's writing it up, and then he looks over at the picture of Carol Danvers and her fighter, hopping in her fighter jet, and on the side it says her nickname, which is the Avenger. So he deletes the Protectors and puts the Avenger Initiative, and then boom, end of movie. And I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So it builds on everything this universe has really done, and for me, it's just a must-see movie, especially for people that love the Marvel Universe and people that have young kids as well.
You know how it was a great movie, guys? think about it. The pager. Look how excited we got about that. It's a fucking pager.
Yeah,
They
right.
make that such a major part of 2 movies now. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like what it's going to do. It's a simple pager. We're just sitting there. Ooh, you watch it and you're like, all right, it's like in Captain Marvel on the Avengers, and then she comes out and says, I souped this up for you a little bit. It should reach 2 galaxies away, or whatever.
Yeah.
And just a pager, and it got you so hype and got you, so ready for the next one. I can't wait.
Probably don't even know what a pager is,
Yeah,
Most
right.
people, kids these days definitely don't.
I think Mike North uses one.
Yeah. Yeah, I had one when my son was a baby, just to trade off visitation with his mom. That was the only reason I had it. Yeah. All right. So thanks again for joining us, Shayne.
Thank you. It was a blast.
You'd come back for Endgame, and we'll have
I'm here.
like our comic book nerd cartoonist Ethan with us, Joe.
Yeah.
He is locked in for Endgame, and that's going to be probably an hour long.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'll be the last
standard.
week of April, and we're going to have a lot to talk about. You know that.
Yeah, and
That's draft week. I might have to tap out, guys.
oh man, yeah, I would like to see Us, which comes out a week from tomorrow, which is the Jordan Peele film, Joe. We might have to review that one if you like to Get Out.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna be the first person to admit it. I never got to see Get Out.
Oh, really?
Really?
Man, you got to see Get Out, dude. That's awesome.
I've never seen it either, Joe. Don't feel bad.
Hey, there we go.
That was really good, man. It'll take you by surprise. I went into it not knowing a thing about it, and man, I was surprised. Very well made, and it is dark and it's funny and a little bit scary. But yeah, it's good. It was I think it was nominated for Best Original Screenplay, but Key and Peele, they made a name for themselves outside of that show. So, but yeah, all right. So, signing off. We'll see you next time at the movies.
Boom.
Boom.
Fair down.